I just can't believe that this is happening. So when I see it go up like that, with everybody's hands on top of the table, I think, how on earth could this happen?
What is important is not what's done, it's what people see as being done.
In Victoria, British Columbia, a group of researchers meet regularly to communicate with the spirit world. They begin by sitting around a table.
Okay, so...
Back up. Are we going to get a pivot?
I thought so too. Yeah, maybe.
You need some contact.
Yeah, you need some contact, that's right. You need some contact.
Our purpose is to try to obtain evidence of the continued existence of our spirit loved ones and friends in an afterlife state, obviously. We all come to this study with the perspective that there is life after death. We've all had experiences that confirm for us that life goes on.
Okay, so...
That energy coming.
Here we go.
Whoa.
Oh, there's a pivot.
There's one table, one leg,
okay.
one leg.
There's one leg.
Oh, jeez.
That was a shuffle across the carpet. A north lift.
Still here though.
Oh,
We're
now
still
it's
here.
doing a different...
Okay, it's walking.
Okay.
Oh, I'm going to move back here.
Okay, we've got somebody.
Okay, so we've got somebody that wants to communicate. Okay, welcome, friend. Are you here for somebody in the room this evening? That's a yes.
We wait until the table's rocking, and then we ask the question. If the table continues rocking or increases in speed, that's a yes. If the table stops rocking, it's a no. And we believe that spirit, or discarnate mind, if you will, is able to somehow use that momentum, that rocking motion in the table to communicate.
Hello.
Don't go away, come on, please.
Hello.
Please.
I'm still there.
Since the heyday of spiritualism in the mid-19th century, numerous experiments have been conducted in an attempt to understand the phenomena. In the early 1970s in Toronto, Ontario, a similar group of researchers were communicating with a very unique spirit. His name was Philip.
I think 2 or 3 sessions after we started, we heard this noise in the table which sounded like a rap. And somebody said, well, is that Philip? And it rapped again harder.
Hello, Philip. Are you there?
Good morning, Philip.
Good morning, Philip. Hi, Philip.
According to the group, Philip was a 17th century aristocrat living in Oliver Cromwell's England. He was married to a beautiful but icy woman, Dorothea, the daughter of a neighboring nobleman. One day, while out riding near the boundaries of his estate, Philip came across a gypsy encampment and a beautiful, dark-eyed, raven-haired gypsy girl, Margot, and fell instantly in love with her. Secretly, Philip brought Margot back to live in the gatehouse near the stables of Diddington Manor, his family home. For some time, he kept his love nest secret, but eventually Dorothea discovered Margot and accused her of witchcraft and of stealing her husband. Philip, afraid of losing his reputation and his possessions, did not protest at the trial of Margot, not even when she was convicted of witchcraft and burned at the stake. After Margot's death, Philip was stricken with remorse that he had not even tried to defend her, and was often seen pacing the battlements of Diddington in despair. Finally, one morning, his body was found at the foot of the battlements, where he had cast himself in a fit of agony and regret. Since that fateful day, every so often, a ghostly figure can be seen pacing the battlements of Diddington.
Speak up. Let's hear some knocks.
Come on, let's get going. Have you brought Dorothea with you? Have you seen Dorothea lately?
So we established the idea that it would answer a question yes with 1 rap and no with 2 raps.
Did you love Margot? Oh, come on, you can do it, Philip. Come on. Start moving. Come on.
Bang on the table so we can hear. I can't see any way that any of us can move the table ourselves, so there's got to be energy or something which would be very interesting if we could find out how it works.
Why don't you do it? You make it all right if you think I could. Oh, yes, definitely. I think you've got it exactly. Especially the eyes.
Good morning, Philip.
I think it's been the most exciting parapsychological experiment that I've ever taken part in. We've been interested in these physical phenomena for so many years, and I feel that at last we've made a breakthrough.
It was quite remarkable, really, to hear it, and it's difficult to explain it in words. You need to hear it. It was a serious scientific experiment, and it was working.
When we hear of people communicating with the spirit world, we don't normally think of it as a scientific experiment. What made this ghost so unique?
Well, Philip is an imaginary ghost. We created him, a group of us created him out of our own minds. Now, we invented a story for him, which is completely imaginary.
Iris and the other members of the group belong to the Toronto Society for Psychical Research.
The members of the group are regarded as perfectly normal people, or as normal as anyone can actually be. 4 are housewives: Sue, Dorothy, Andy, and Iris. Sid is a salesman, Bernice an accountant, Al is an engineer, and Lorne a designer. None of them claims to be a medium. Psychical research is just one of their many diverse interests.
They wanted to understand what was really happening when people claimed to see or hear a ghost. And they believed there was a scientific explanation for it.
We decided that we would invent a character and then see if we could conjure up that character as a ghost. So we started by using meditation forms. We sat around for an hour or two quietly meditating, and we did this every Thursday evening, and if you believe it or not, we did it for a whole year.
Meditation didn't work for the group, but after further research, Iris learned that if they took a more playful attitude when they sat around the table, they would get better results. As soon as they did this, they began to hear raps in the table.
And the raps in the table came completely in accordance with the story that we had invented, so that it was behaving in its answers as if it were the ghosts that we had invented, the kind of thing that happens in poltergeist situations.
Poltergeist is German for noisy ghost. Reported disturbances typically include strange noises and knockings, and objects moving about as if under their own power.
Something may float off of a shelf, something may be thrown across the room, something may move, a piece of furniture may move, with nobody obviously or apparently doing it. Well, after a great deal of study, I believe it's the result of releasing repressed emotions. So it's in situations where people are unable to express or deal with very deeply felt emotions.
Iris believed this manifestation was not being caused by disembodied spirits, but rather by psychokinesis, or PK for short. Philip was a group effort to create a psychokinetic effect that would behave in the same way as a poltergeist.
Psychokinesis is the alleged ability to influence physical objects just purely by willpower. So examples would include people who claim that they can make objects levitate, or people claiming that they can bend metal just purely by the power of the mind, or influence the breakdown of subatomic particles. There's a whole wide range of ways in which PK can manifest, but essentially it's claiming that you can influence the external world just by thinking about it.
The existence of any psychokinesis at all forces us to take seriously a kind of magical worldview. If I can move, say, a pencil a millimeter just by thought alone, it's a very small step conceptually from doing that to making somebody drop dead by thought alone.
There is an endless debate between the believers and non-believers about the possibility of communication with the spirit world. There is a similar debate between those who believe there is evidence for psychokinesis and those who do not.
The careful scientist would say, okay, before I jump to any conclusion, let me look at how various explanations seem to suit the phenomena that I see. And I don't think, from my reading of the Philip studies, that there was anything like scientific precision in their study of these phenomena.
I think there are several levels of fear that infect the academic approach to the evidence for PK. One is the fear of the phenomena in general, this fear of responsibility, this fear of accepting this kind of magical worldview where all hell can break loose if we really take it seriously. And the other is just the fear of condemnation within the academic community, which is really much more cutthroat than a lot of people would believe.
Many people in the old days, and some apparently even today, believe there are fairies at the end of their gardens. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. As long as they don't interfere with my life, they're welcome to all the fairies they want. They can talk to plants. I don't care. I'm not out to convert anybody. But if someone says, I've got scientific evidence that fairies exist, then what they're doing is drawing in the reputation of science to bolster their view. And if people start to listen to them, then I think, as a university professor who has some knowledge in this area, I have a responsibility to say to the public, hold on, this person calls this scientific evidence, but it's pretty poor evidence.
Shall we move back? I don't think it meant.
Okay, here they are.
Thank you. Is this the same communicator? Thank you. Are you here for one of the men with their hands on the table tonight?
Yeah.
Are you here for one of the Walters?
No.
Okay. Good. That's how two of us.
That was great. You'll get your turn, don't worry.
Stephen Young is a member of this spiritualist research group that meets every Thursday evening.
Well, the first time I saw the table start to move, I have to say that I was totally skeptical. I thought, something fishy going on here. Those folks are making it do that. I just can't believe that this is happening. You know, somebody's lifting it up, or they're forcing it to go up and down. And then the more that I witnessed this, and the more I kind of considered it, the more I came to realize that, in fact, it wouldn't be possible for them to do it. To get that table to stand up on just one leg, I don't see how you could do it. If you consider that we tried taking one corner, one edge of the table, pushing down on it to try and make the other side come up. We couldn't do it, no matter how hard we tried. And yet, if you were to sit on the other side of the table, remembering that your hands are fully exposed and on top of the table, how could you lift it from that side? So when I see it go up like that, with everybody's hands on top of the table, and especially when it's up to being on one leg or shuffling around the room, I think, how on earth could this happen?
There was no way that the raps were produced by any other means. First of all, we had endless video of it working, and you can see if everybody's hands are like that, and it's all in full light, and you can see their feet and knees away, and there's you can see that there's no way that they can produce the raps.
One of the most important aspects of successful movement and raps in the Philip table was the attitude of the people. When they sang, joked, and were playful, Philip responded. These sitters have had a very similar experience.
Whoa, yeah. No, but we got to remember to keep talking and laughing.
Yeah.
And
Just because they're rolling on.
Okay, here they are.
Thank you. Is this the same communicator?
Are you pleased that Bill is doing this sort of thing? Are you surprised?
We always try to keep it in the positive side of things. We never enter into the realm of darkness.
Are you Walter's grandmother? Okay, this is going to be hard, folks.
It is.
Okay, we've been down
The best attitude for obtaining table phenomena is when group members are in a good mood, when they are not too tired from their day. It's really important that a group get to know each other well enough to get beyond the inhibition of looking foolish, because it does look rather funny when you've got a group of adults sitting around a table attempting to coax it to move.
Thank you. Are you Diane's mother?
Oh, okay. I knew you would have to pop in somewhere this evening. I didn't think you could stay away.
Oh, really? Oh.
There are obviously two possibilities here. One is that there is some kind of external force that's moving the table. The other is that people are themselves moving the table, even though they may not be consciously aware of that fact. The great English physicist Michael Faraday did a series of experiments.
Faraday is known for his pioneering experiments in electricity and magnetism.
What he essentially did was, rather than letting people put their hands directly on the table's surface, he put layers of waxed paper between their hands and the table. Now, if the table moves, so there are two possibilities. One is that some external force has moved the table. So if the table moves to the right, there'd be a slight drag factor while the hands kind of try to keep up with the table. If in fact people are unintentionally pushing the table, then the table will tend to drag slightly. And so the wax sheets will be pushed off in the other direction. So it's a very neat demonstration. And what was quite clearly shown was that people were moving the table without realizing what they were doing. So it's a nice example of what we call the ideomotor effect, where non-conscious movements are perceived by the person who's actually making those muscular movements as coming from somewhere else, coming from somewhere external.
Professor James Alcock of York University in Toronto teaches about the psychology of paranormal experiences.
Since this is a course about anomalous experience, the basic point I want to make today, building what we talked about in the past, is that much of what our brains do is at a non-conscious level. So we can make movements without being aware of it. We can perceive things without being aware of it. And of course, much of our understanding is affected by that. And so it's even safe to say that some of our understanding comes about really without awareness. I want to talk a bit about ideomotor action. Now, your job is not to move the pendulum, right? I'm going to get it swinging, but you're not to try to influence it in any way. But what people will tell you is that if you hold this over the hand of a male, it will swing this way, and over a female, it will make a circle. And again, some people claim there's some natural reason for this. If you hold it first over your palm, and it should go into a very straight line over a male's hands. Doing that? Now hold it over the woman beside you hand, and you'll see that it will go into a circle. Interesting, isn't it? What's happening here?
Well, I think it maybe could be an internal force, like biologically there could be something chemically different
Right.
within me and you.
But your brain isn't doing it. You're not consciously doing it. Okay. And what is really happening is what's referred to on the slide as ideomotor action. See, you think you're holding it steadily, but in fact your hand's moving very slightly. And what it will do, if you expect it to move in a straight line, it will produce a straight line. If you expect it to be in a circle, it will produce a circle because of non-conscious processing. You end up with a non-conscious part of your brain doing deliberately what it expects to find, and the conscious part of your brain saying, hey, it wasn't me. I didn't do it. It has to be something outside.
There.
Are you here for one of the circle members?
We can pose questions to the table that sometimes the answers are spot on.
And are you on Walter's mother's side of the family? Okay. Come on back, please.
At other times, they kind of go down the wrong road, and that leads me to, again, a bit of skepticism when the answer isn't as lucid and forthright as I might expect. It kind of goes down this wrong path.
And it's going across the carpet. It's sort of a shuffling, walking motion.
Can you get it on one leg for us? Can you get it on one leg?
I still need some event to occur that says to me once and for all, Steve, yes, categorically, you are communicating with a spirit in some way, shape, or form. I have yet to have that.
I want to give you a demonstration of the Ouija board. It was put in the market over a century ago.
The Ouija board is another tool that many people believe helps them communicate with the spirit world. For others, it is one more convincing example of idiomotor action.
The initial literature that went with it, the instructions went with it, talked about idiomotor action. People who invented this board knew what they were talking about. They said the unconscious movements, you'll spell out things. But the public didn't buy that. The public started saying, my goodness, there's something going on in your spirits. And of course, this was in the age of spiritualism. And the second edition of the test, when it came out, was published with some mumbo-jumbo. The Ouija is, without doubt, one of the most interesting, remarkable, mysterious products of the century. It's often answering questions concerning the past, present, and future with marvelous accuracy. Its mysterious movements invite the most careful research and investigation, apparently forming the link which unites the known with the unknown, the material with the immaterial.
The Ouija board was first introduced to the public in 1890, at the height of the spiritualist craze, and was initially marketed as a parlor game. Today, these boards are still sold as a novelty or game that many of us have tried our hands at. And today it is, as it was over 100 years ago, still used as a tool by those who believe in communication with the other side.
So I want you to think of your mother's middle name, okay? And let the spirits, imagine you're at in a seance parlor, and it's a little bit dark and there are candles. Don't deliberately do it, though. Just let it move on its own. Do you have a sense that it's moving on its own, or are you pushing it around?
I'm not.
Are you pushing it?
No, I'm not touching it.
So nobody's pushing it?
No, I'm not pushing it.
So it's floating on its own?
No, it's the spirits.
Well, just concentrate on her first name. Give the spirits a chance. The important thing is here, they don't think they were moving it. I remember a couple of years ago in this class, there was a student in the class who was afraid when I took the Ouija board out. She said, no, 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 please don't take it out. In my family, we're frightened of the Ouija board. With that kind of expectation, any object can have power over you.
Are you here for one of the group members this evening?
Skeptics think that without clear evidence to support the extraordinary claim that spirits communicate with the living, other possibilities should be explored. A lot can be understood by the idea of idiomotor action. The non-conscious muscular movements of the sitters may explain why the table tilts, rocks, and shuffles across the room.
I think the best way to look at it is to say, is there evidence that something exists? A lot of physicists didn't believe in black holes, although the theories predicted them. Now, just about every physicist believes in black holes because there's evidence. So whether something's consistent with theory or not, the final arbiter should be, where is the evidence? If it exists, it shouldn't be that difficult to demonstrate.
I think the idiomotor hypothesis accounts for only the tiniest fraction of physical phenomena that might be considered to be psychokinetic. The more interesting phenomena can't even remotely be regarded as idiomotor. So if a table completely levitates, or if something apparently materializes, or if objects float around the room untouched, or if apparent ectoplasm emerges from a medium's body, these are the phenomena that I think are the most interesting in the history of spiritualism. And here the idiomotor hypothesis has nothing to say whatever.
And I say, I think it's Zeus. You don't believe Zeus exists? I think Zeus is making it happen. And that's evidence for the existence of Zeus. And you would say, and parapsychologists would say, that's silly, that's nonsense. How can you just bring up Zeus? And I said, well, how can you just bring up psychokinesis? How can you just bring up spirits? You're just throwing something out. You don't have any evidence of it. You're saying, it can't be this, this, and this, therefore it's the spirits. Or this, it can't be this and this, therefore it's psychokinesis. I said, no, it can't be this and this, therefore it's Zeus.
Why do people maintain the degree of ignorance that they do about these cases? I believe it just scares the hell out of them. The cases that matter when you're considering whether psychokinesis is a real phenomenon are the strongest cases. One of my favorites is from the career of the medium D.D. Hume.
In the late 19th century, when spiritualism was at its peak, Hume was known for causing some of the most unique and extraordinary phenomena to occur. It's reported he was able to float in the air, elongate his body, cause tables to levitate without touching them, and that in his presence, spirit hands would materialize. The most famous story told about Hume is that with a room full of witnesses, he floated out one window and back in another. There are currently many explanations about how Hume may have produced these phenomena. There are also questions as to whether some of the reported phenomena ever actually happened. But during his life, he was investigated on many occasions and was never proven to be a fraud.
And one of Hume's favorite phenomena was to make an accordion play either untouched or while held at the end away from the keys. Now, Hume believed that the phenomena were strongest under the seance table. And admittedly, that sounds a little suspicious.
He was investigated by the chemist and physicist William Crookes. Crookes is known for his 1861 discovery of the element thallium and his invention of the radiometer. Although Crookes had a favorable view of spiritualism, he was determined to study the phenomena impartially and scientifically. His examinations were conducted in his own home, with witnesses he selected himself. He also used his own apparatus, in this case, an accordion.
Then he brought Hume to his house, where he had constructed a wire and wooden cage which just fit under his dining room table. There were 9 observers present. The accordion was seen to move about in the cage, the keys were depressed, sounds came out of the accordion, and eventually Hume took his hand out of the cage, put both hands on the table where they could clearly be seen. The accordion still flopped around inside the cage. Now, that's something that no skeptic has tried to replicate, and I think for good reason.
William Crookes was a scientist and was known to be honest and careful in his investigations. But is a scientist qualified to investigate someone who is using trickery? This is a question that many skeptics ask themselves when looking at the investigations that have been conducted in this field.
We can't just take people's accounts. They can be as honest and as careful as they want. We are all, every one of us, prone to self-deception, self-delusion, and delusion brought about by others.
One of the big problems I have in trying to assess these historical cases is that we are just so far removed from the events that took place, and so often we are entirely dependent upon the actual written accounts that were recorded round about the time the events took place. And unfortunately we know so much about the unreliability of eyewitness testimony, about the possibility of trickery and so on and so forth, that in my eyes it makes that kind of evidence just impossible to assess.
There are others who believe that these historical cases provide solid evidence of paranormal activity.
The best evidence of table phenomena that I've found is the research that was undertaken by Dr. Glenn Hamilton in Winnipeg in the 1920s. He was a medical doctor, a politician, a member of his church, and for a period of 6 years, he undertook a very serious study of psychokinesis, of the table movements, and ultimately the full table levitations that the Hamilton family's nanny was able to manifest. Her name was Elizabeth Poole, and between 1921 and 1927, Dr. Hamilton conducted extensive experiments into these phenomena.
A wooden cabinet with a screen was built at one end of the room, and a table was placed inside it. A group of people sat around the cabinet. The person closest placed one hand on the cabinet and held the hand of the sitter beside them with the other. Dr. Hamilton sat beside Mrs. Poole, holding her left hand. Using his other hand, he would snap the photographs. The group sat in complete darkness. The only time anything could be seen was when the camera's flash momentarily illuminated the room.
With the Hamilton group, looking at the photographs and knowing that the original glass plate negatives exist still at the University of Manitoba archives, and the number of times on which the phenomena was photographed, it's not possible to entertain that there was any fraud involved. The individuals who were involved in the table experiments, they had far more to lose than they ever would have had to gain by somehow attempting to collude to perpetrate this extensive fraud.
Fraud can be very difficult to determine in historical cases, especially when you have what seems to some like irrefutable evidence, such as photographs. Although the researchers can be honest and do their best to create the right conditions to assess the phenomena, they could be tricked, sometimes with surprising ease. The members of the Philip group occasionally had what seemed to be more dramatic table movements. Some even recall the table levitating off the ground.
Occasionally, the table itself altogether would just rise up off the ground, and then it might float 3 or 4 feet before it would come down to the ground again. Sometimes, instead of putting our hands right on the table, we'd hold them above just a few inches, and then we would get either raps or table movement. Not quite so much and not quite so often, but it did happen from time to time.
Iris was not able to capture the table levitation on camera. All we have to rely on is her memory. Is it reasonable to rely on a memory of events that occurred over 30 years ago? Can we even rely on our memory of current events?
We tend to have this assumption that we take in pretty much everything. I mean, a very naive view of the way memory works is that it's almost like a video recorder and that it's all stored away in there somewhere. If only, we can kind of press the right button, replay it, we'll get all the details back again. That's just not the way that memory works.
Does someone have a little bit of water? Just about third full, say. Good, that's enough. Okay, so this is potable. I can drink it. So this is a little bit of a variation of the old shell game. People used to put a pea under a shell, probably still do it, and they'd have you watch. And if you could tell which shell had the pea under it, you'd win money, and of course you never did. So just observe. I mean, it's a pretty simple thing, right? Now what I'm going to try to do, though, is just sometimes pour it very softly so you can't really hear it. Other times I'll make noise. I should really be standing on both feet to do this, but so these are the 3 shells, and this is the P, the water going into it, the PEA. So pour it back again, pour it back again. Now the question is, which of these 3 cups, I'll just mix them up a bit more, has the water? I'll tell you, give you a hint, it's not this one. It's one of these 2. Which is it, left or right?
Your left or
This left?
No.
That one? That one? No, it's not that one. It's only that one! There is no water. I don't know. Was there any to begin with? Now, all we have to go on, of course, is your memory. Maybe by me suggesting that you saw water going back and forth, I created that illusion. You saw it. You're pretty sure you saw it. How many of you are sure you saw the water? Everybody? So now we're left with a puzzle then. There is no water.
Memory is a constructive process. It's based upon the information that you did take in at the time, it's based upon your beliefs and your expectations, and it's all put together in a kind of mosaic, and you then get what appears to be a memory. But you don't know which bits of your memory are actually telling you something that is reliable and which did occur, and which bits are those where you're just filling in the gaps.
People tend to focus in on what they think is the answer and then only look for stuff that seems to support that. And then we make mistakes.
I think they're confused as to which way they're going to rock.
Are they going to rock or are they going to roll? Come on.
Here they go. Here they go. Okay, so welcome, friend. Is this somebody new this evening?
Although we have two different groups doing what seems to be a similar kind of experiment, they have interpreted their results in very different ways. The Philip group believed they were not communicating with the spirit, but had somehow harnessed a group energy that took on a life of its own.
Okay, we should use
This group believes that they are communicating with the spirit world, initiated by a spirit guide called Grey Cloud. Psychologists have explained that when it's not outright fraud, ideomotor action or non-conscious motor activity is the cause of the table tilting. The question remains, why do people believe that the phenomena is evidence of the paranormal?
Welcome, Grey Cloud. You're going to answer questions like that? Okay.
Grey Cloud is primarily associated with Pete. He's the guide, the influence that's able to act as the gatekeeper, and he's able to ensure that there's some orderly lineup of those who attempt to communicate through the rocking table.
Well, thank you, Grey Cloud, for... I'm sure you must all be here tonight, right, everybody? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they're all here.
Yeah, they're all here. And thank you all for
participating
in doing this little demonstration.
Lots of things have amazed me. Many times when I've sat there, is it me controlling the table? I'm past that now. I just accept what's going to happen happens. Some things still amaze me though. I used to think that I could control or try and control, but I just don't, do I? You've seen.
No, it doesn't.
Well, you had your hands off the table anyway a couple of times. You were back, and it was still so. It's
yeah, that's right. But I mean with Grey Cloud.
Is Grey Cloud your spirit guide?
He is definitely my spirit guide. Yes, I have a photo or a picture painting done by a spiritual artist. What I know now, I felt he's been with me for a long, long time. And he has come out more as I've developed, I guess. I'm so much more aware of him. I would like to devote more time to healing. And I feel Grey Cloud he's my healing guide.
Is this healing for Steve? I think this is Grey Cloud again, is it? Diane?
Yeah.
It's very strong.
There definitely is a group energy involved, and you can feel it. There is a force at work that is summoned up by all of us together.
Yeah, it's almost like
electricity. Yes, I can feel that a lot.
What do you feel?
Like
almost like
pins
electricity.
and like, yeah.
I've never experienced that.
Really?
You've not had a healing before?
No,
Okay.
I haven't.
Okay.
No, I've never had a direct healing from Grey Cloud.
Oh.
I feel my energy is suddenly gone. It's funny. It's a very funny feeling.
They want to believe that those things are happening, and therefore the evidence doesn't have to be that compelling. Now, I think what's happening there is that it's quite a nice example of what we call kind of top-down processing.
Now we're rocking in an interesting direction. So are you here to communicate with one of the group members this evening?
Top-down processing refers to the relationship between our beliefs and our perceptions. This group believes they communicate with spirits, so some would maintain their experience simply confirms their expectations.
The very best example of the power of top-down processing that I've ever come across doesn't refer to something which, strictly speaking, is paranormal, but the claim that's often made by Christian fundamentalists in America that there are satanic messages embedded within rock music, but you only hear these messages if you actually play the records backwards.
Sit back, relax, and listen to the following sounds. This is a rock song played backwards. It's one of the songs that some Christian fundamentalists believe contain satanic messages. The sounds you will hear are completely random, but if you listen carefully, you may be able to hear a satanic message yourself. What did you hear? Now we will play the same random sounds again. You'll be so surprised by what you hear that you may not believe this is the same piece of music. This is not a trick. We are playing exactly the same sounds. This time, you will hear the following message.
Here's to my sweet Satan, the one whose little path would make me sad, whose power is Satan. He'll give you 666. There was a little tool shed where he made us suffer, sad Satan. This time I'm going to play it, and you will hear that message as clear as a bell. The expectation and the knowledge of what you're supposed to hear is influencing the way that you're perceiving what essentially are kind of random sounds. But once you know what you're supposed to hear, then that is what you hear. And as I say, it's a very, very stunning example of the power of top-down processing.
No, I don't feel.
Okay, so is Grey Cloud here to answer questions?
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
So I think we've got a similar situation here with the table tilting, where the expectation is influencing the way that you're perceiving.
There are those who perceive they are communicating with the spirit world. There are others who know it's psychokinesis, or PK, making objects move. And there are some who see a group of people honestly, innocently, and non-consciously pushing a table around. The question is, what do you see?
Well, I think the ultimate goal, as far as I'm concerned, is to see the table fully levitate. That's one of the things that, for me, I would really like to see the...
That is something that, turns science upside down. It really, as long as there's hands on it and it's rocking, it's rolling, we know we're not pushing and shoving it. We don't believe any of us are unconsciously controlling the table either, because it just doesn't make any sense anymore. We've watched it too many times, these 98 times over 6 years, I guess. We have to get over our disbelief that we actually can be responsible for total levitation of the table. As long as we're resisting owning the fact that we are mediums or psychics and allowing the energy flow to happen, it doesn't sound as though it will happen.
Communication between the world of the living and the world of the dead is an idea that people find very, very comforting. It speaks to one of our deepest, most fundamental fears concerning our own mortality and the inevitability of death for all the people that we love. So when you're up against that kind of motivation, to be honest, I think the skeptics have got no chance whatsoever.
A good scientific attitude is to say, I could be wrong, I could be fooling myself. So what can I do to try to protect against that? And of course, one thing to do is to get other people involved who don't share your view. And so, if I believed in ghosts or if I believed in psychokinesis, I hope I would be honest enough intellectually to say, but I might be mistaken.
As far as people who are already determined to reject the phenomena, I don't think you can reason people out of that position, and I've stopped trying.
There should be no opposition between someone like myself who gets labeled a skeptic and someone who believes in these things if we're both looking for truth.
The members of the group that were communicating with Philip were also looking for truth.
It's interesting. Although we all knew intellectually that he was not a real person, as time went on, we all felt that he was real. And we kind of talked to him as if he were real. And eventually, after about 5 or 6 years, it was becoming a little bit of a sideshow. We were attracting an awful lot of attention, including a lot of media attention at the time. And the group said this is not what we were here for. It was supposed to be a scientific experiment. We've done it. We've done as much as we can, and we've got other things we want to do on a Thursday evening than do this all the while unless we can go further. Let's stop it for the moment. And so we stopped it.
Oh, yes, definitely.
And Philip just... Well, Philip still, according to some people, is still around.
Iris and her group of researchers spent many years with Philip, the fictitious ghost. They had conversations, made jokes, even shared secrets. Philip left the realm of experiment and in a way came to life. And out of boredom or frustration or the inability to move the experiment to the next level, had been banished to once again roam the lonely battlements of Diddington Manor, mourning his lost love.
And do you miss him?
Not really. He's not really gone.
Speaking personally, I don't believe in the afterlife. I'm afraid that, for me, death is just the point at which biochemistry turns to chemistry. That's why nobody invites me to parties.